Last day of school for more than 1 million New York City public school students. The chapter is closed on a very challenging year, to say the least, right? New York City Schools Chancellor Richard Carranza joining me now with what is next for the summer and this next school year come September as well. Good morning to you, Chancellor. Thank you for joining us this morning. I'm used to seeing you in your kitchen. This is a different look. All right, so
good morning, Dan.
Good morning. So looking back, Chancellor, on the unprecedented school year, how do you think it went? I mean, you did everything relatively quickly to get everybody up and running, but was there anything you looking back on maybe would do differently come September if it still is looking like it is now?
Well, we wouldn't have had coronavirus.
Well, yeah.
But all kidding aside, I just want to say thank you to our students and our teachers and principals and support staff, but also to our parents who were thrust into the role of adjunct faculty of every one of their children's schools. This was unprecedented. And I think everybody really rose to the occasion under very difficult circumstances. That being said, we've learned a lot.
Yeah.
It took us 4 days to pivot the largest school system in America to remote learning, and we learned a lot of lessons, and we're continuing to take those lessons into the summer and into the planning for the fall. So again, we want to make sure that
Can you give me an example of a lesson?
Well, for example, when we went into remote learning, there were teachers that had experience in doing virtual learning, some teachers that had never done it. So some teachers were off and running, others really had to learn how to do that and learn the platforms and learn the technology and how to plan and then teach in that environment. And I can tell you that 3 months later, they are much better prepared to do that than they were when we first went into remote learning. So we want to continue to capture that as we go forward.
And looking at the totality of the school year, right? Not every household was equipped for remote learning as well. Aside from the lack of technology, there were language barriers. It was challenging learning environments overall, like you alluded to with the faculty, but also the students themselves who had to adjust to this as well. Do you feel students were able to keep up, or do you worry that some students may have fallen behind?
Well, we'll never replace a well-trained, caring teacher in the classroom in person with students. There's no replacement for that. So remote learning will never be the same. However, we, in the course of these 2.5 months, were able to distribute over 300,000 Wi-Fi enabled devices. We were able to have students walk out the door on the last day before we went into remote learning with 175,000 devices.
Yeah.
So we are much better prepared now than we were when we first transitioned. So again, we want to continue to build on that as we go into the fall and the uncertainty of what COVID-19 will look like as we get through the summer months.
So, Chancellor, let me talk about this right now. More than 70,000 students will begin summer school on July 6th, right? How is that going to look? Is it going to look any different than what the last 3 months have looked like? Will there be any in-person learning as well?
No, it'll be remote, and it'll be, again, building upon what we've learned over these last 2.5, 3 months. But teachers have the ability, because teachers apply for summer school, they will have professional development around the learning platforms that they will use for summer school. Mm-hmm. We know that every one of those students will have a device right from day one in summer learning. We also are working on some limited in-person supports for students with disabilities. So students with disabilities and their families will have more details as that becomes more and more solid. Yeah. But again, all of this depends on the medical advice and what's actually doable in an in-person environment.
And of course, all eyes are on September, right? And I want to talk about that for a second as well. City Controller Scott Stringer sent a scathing letter giving the Department of Education an F for its planning of the next school year, saying that preparation and communication to students and staff should be much further along than it is, since the school year is about 75, 76 days away. I want to give you a chance to respond to that and then explain maybe what you have in store for September.
So Controller Stringer is a wonderful public servant. We have a great relationship, but he couldn't possibly know what we're doing to strategically plan for the fall. He just couldn't know. And I'll give you an example. Los Angeles Unified, second largest school district in America, starts school in August. They have yet to release what their plan is because things are changing on a daily, almost hourly basis. So we are in the heat. We started planning for a return to in-person learning the day that we went into remote learning mode. That being said, we have done an analysis. We have all of the medical advice around social distancing. We've done an analysis of every square foot of every one of the 1,800 schools in New York City. That is now in the hands of principals, and no one knows their building better than a school principal, where they're walking their buildings, verifying the analysis we've done, identifying other spaces that could be converted into classroom spaces. taking into account the social distancing, the medical requirements from the medical advice. So there's a lot of meticulous work that is happening right now that, unless you're part of it, you couldn't possibly know what that is.
Yeah, so can you give some parents a look at to what you are working at in September? We've heard about this idea of staggered classes come September with students alternating, right, between classrooms and remote learning. But parents really need that plan ahead of time so they can figure out when their child will be home versus when they'll be in a classroom. So is that a proposal you're actually looking at?
There's any scenario you could possibly think of. If you can only have a certain number of bodies, whether they're students or adults, in a confined space, and you must maintain social distancing based on the medical advice, then that means you're going to have less people in spaces. That means that you're going to have capacity issues to serve all of your people, students and adults, within any given period. So anything that you can imagine, we are taking a look at. We are involving our principals. We are surveying our families and students about what they want. We've heard from some of our families that have said, we don't feel safe or comfortable sending our children back until there's a vaccine. Well, we need to know how many of our families actually feel that way, because that's important to know. We also know that there are some of our staff members that have medical conditions that may make it difficult for them to be in an environment with lots of other people. We are serving them as well. And then triangulating that with the distance requirements. So anything you can think of is being considered, but it's a meticulous, very complex algorithm and consideration. So anyone that is saying we should have already done a plan doesn't bear the responsibility when that plan goes wrong.
Understood.
I do. The mayor. So we're going to take all the time we need to make sure that it's a safe learning environment for students and staff.
Yeah, I know everybody wants those answers now, right? Patience is a virtue for sure. Partitions, hand sanitizer. I heard you talk about these things the other night on the Pix 11 News at 5 as well. And those are things, excuse me, that obviously would be in the classrooms moving forward as well. But there's this proposal and this idea also to cut $650 million in funds from the Education Department. What impact would that have on you come September with what you'd seem like you need more money to have safety mechanisms in place?
We do, and that's where the federal government and the state government come in to help keep us whole. But the Mayor de Blasio has been very clear that health and safety for schools and students and teachers is priority number one. So as we are putting our plans together and as we've done the analysis of what that will cost, because there will be a cost, make no mistake, the mayor has continued to be very clear that we will do whatever we need to do to make sure that we have safe and secure, healthy environments for students and staff. So those cuts will have to come somewhere else, and we're in the process of those budget discussions right now as we.
Let's lighten up. Next Tuesday's a big night, right? Pix 11's part of it. More than 50,000 high school students did not get the pomp and circumstances of a ceremony this year because of what's going on. I loved my high school graduation. I remember it very well. It's a star-studded celebration. So how many people do you plan on participating in this? We know there's some big-name celebrities as well.
So Lin-Manuel Miranda, we know for sure Tina Fey is going to be part of this. I understand there's a lot of other surprises. I don't want to give them away, but we have some big names that are going to participate to congratulate the class of 2020. I want to thank Pix 11 for joining us and being part of it. I know you're showing Pitbull. Pitbull's going to make an appearance as well. But our students deserve it, and I wish we could do this in person, but I want, if there's almost 9 million residents of New York City, I want 9 million residents tuning in to celebrate the class of 2020.
And what will it look like? What will this look like? Series of speeches and performances?
It's going to be performances, comments. Nobody wants to hear a speech, but there are going to be congratulatory messages. There's going to be incredible video of our seniors that are graduating, lots of shout outs from across the country. So think of it as one big celebratory, I would say, shout out to the class of 2020.
I got to ask you, I know we've talked about this many times that you are part of a band. Any chance that we'll hear you perform?
Let's put it this way. I would not be surprised.
There you go. Okay. I mean, you're up there with Pitbull, right? You know what I'm saying? Chancellor Carranza, I appreciate your time this morning. And this is a big day for you and the last day of school, so I do appreciate you making the time for us this morning.
Thank you, Dan. Be safe.
And we'll see you on Tuesday, right? We're looking forward to next Tuesday's graduation, everyone. And it's taking place June 30th, 7 p.m. to celebrate the class of 2020. It's streamed live on Pix 11 at 7 p.m. on all of our platforms as well. We welcome you to join us